So the attacks, we are told, were very well planned and executed with near military precision, from the targeting of Pakistani security forces camps to checkpoints to blowing up a crucial railway bridge to the singling out of Pakistani Punjabi Muslims in buses and killing them at point blank range. A young Pakistan Army captain was killed in action as he responded to a distressed call of civilians being killed on the highway. That's the information that's coming in. The timing of the killings could not have been worse for Pakistan. These killings happened when the Chinese army chief was in Pakistan, incidentally demanding additional security for the China-Pakistan economic corridor. There are suggestions that China may deploy its military contractors for the protection of the China-Pakistan economic corridor projects. What should one make of these coordinated attacks? Joining me on this special broadcast are Mehran Mari, a respected Baloch activist at the UN and the European Union. Arzu Kazmi is a journalist and analyst from Pakistan, and Sushant Sareen keeps a hawk-eye on Pakistan, senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Mehran Mari, may I begin by asking you, how do you view these attacks on Pakistani forces and civilians across the length and breadth of Balochistan?
I think these attacks were expected. If somebody was not expecting these attacks, they were living in fool's paradise. I parallel this to the 7th of October, what happened in Israel, because the history of Pakistan and Israel is very similar. The creators are the same people, and the history of the Palestinians and the Baloch is very similar. We've been subjugated and occupied for the last 75 years by powers there in Palestine. It's Israel, here's Pakistan. So obviously, when you're committing genocide over 7 decades of a population, there will be reaction. And with time, they will be more coordinated, they will be more hardened, and they will be more harsh because they're suffering genocide at the hands of these culprit countries.
Okay. Sushant Sareen, multiple coordinated attacks on the Pakistan Army, Pakistani paramilitary forces, and even a railway bridge, and civilians were targeted. If you were to join the dots, what's the signal from the Baloch fighters, Sushant Sareen? What do you make of what's happening in Pakistan? Because this would show Pakistan Army and ISI in very poor light.
Yeah, Gaurav, allow me half a second to just push back on what Mehran just said. I think it is doing grave injustice to the struggle of the Baloch to compare them with a terrorist organization like Hamas. I don't think the Baloch ever rape and pillage and carry out the most unspeakable crimes. By their account, they are fighting a war of liberation and very different from what Hamas very often does, targeting civilians wantonly. So I'm sure Mehran doesn't mean it in that way, but I think it's very important to put the record straight. But on your question, look, I think, Gaurav, it's very clear that the attacks that have happened on 25th, 26th signal a kind of shifting of gears. We've seen we've seen attacks in the past, but we've never seen attacks this coordinated, this complex, on this scale in Balochistan. Now, it raises serious questions about world's #1 intelligence agency, as the Pakistanis like to call it, which was caught napping, which absolutely didn't have any idea, because if to carry out these kind of attacks, you have to have a lot of moving parts, and for an intelligence agency which claims to be the world's #1 agency to not be able to get any of these moving parts and not put these things together signals a complete failure. But even more importantly, I think it shows a level of capability among the Baloch militants which we haven't seen in the past. We've seen them carry out attacks in the past, but they seem pretty amateurish. This time around, it's been extremely professionally executed. They have hit multiple targets. They have done it with military precision, as you very correctly put it. And they have caused a massive psychological damage. Now, people are quibbling about numbers. How many people have died? What has been destroyed? What has not been destroyed? But just look at the kind of psychological impact it has had on the Pakistani Punjabi army, which has been caught, it's had a shock and awe effect. So I think it clearly shows that there's a big escalation. Now, this is operating, Gaurav, importantly. There is a political movement which is going on, which is demanding rights. and there is a militant movement going on. Both
Yes.
are proceeding in tandem. We don't know whether there's any connection. There is no evidence of any connection between them or any coordination or cooperation between them, but they are both operating in tandem, both reinforcing each other, perhaps inadvertently, and strengthening each other. And then finally you have the Afghanistan factor, which far from solving Pakistan's problem, seems to have added to its problems insofar as Balochistan is concerned. So,
Oh, absolutely. And I'll come to the Afghan issue in just a moment. But Arzu Kazmi, a really bad day for Pakistan Army and Pakistan's ISI. The signal in the past 24 to 48 hours has gone out that Pakistan Army not in control of Balochistan at all. The attacks have taken place in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west. It's almost 12 to 13 places across Balochistan. ISI did not have an idea of these coordinated attacks that took place, and they've hit across the province, and many of the attackers have disappeared, we are told.
Exactly, Gaurav. I don't think that it's the number one agency, as Shishant Sarin sir said, because they are the agencies. These are the same agency which didn't know about Osama bin Laden for 10 years. And this is the in Balochistan, whatever happened is, I think, intelligence failure. And also, the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced a military operation now, but I don't think that it will solve the issue, because they need to talk to BLA. They need to talk to the people of Balochistan, because they are suffering since so long because of the, that disappearances of their people, and government is not doing anything. If you remember a few years back when Imran Khan was a prime minister, and Hazara people were sitting on the road with dead bodies,
Yes.
and they want Imran Khan to visit, and he refused to visit them. And he said, "Mujhe blackmail nahi kiya ja sakta." But now, because of Punjabis, I'm not saying that they are doing the right thing or they did the right thing to them, but still, because of the Punjabi people, now they are launching and they are planning the military operation there, which is, I feel, is not good for Balochistan and even for Pakistan. They must talk to
No, because
BLA
that message
and
very
people of
clearly is, and
Balochistan.
before I bring in Mehran Mari, the message very clearly is that only when Pakistani Punjabi Musalmans are killed does Pakistan Army and government wake up. Otherwise, everybody else, whether it's in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province or Sindh province or Balochistan or Gilgit-Baltistan or Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they're all fair game. They can be killed. Pakistan Army does not care. But Sushant Sareen, multiple coordinated attacks on Pakistan Army, on the paramilitary forces, on civilians, a railway bridge. These Baloch fighters seem to be sending a bigger message to the Pakistan Army. It's almost as if they're drawing them into Balochistan for perhaps making it into a killing field.
I agree with you. I would imagine that if the Pakistanis were to be so stupid, and I have no doubts that they will be that stupid, they were to launch a full-fledged attack in Balochistan. Yes, it will cause a lot of damage inside Balochistan, but I wonder whether the Pakistanis will come out of it looking good, because they will be overextending themselves. They've already opened a front with India once again, which was kind of dormant with their recent bloody-mindedness of their army chief, world's #1 army chief. He's done that. So you have tensions brewing on the India border. You already have massive tensions on the Afghan border. And now if Balochistan was to blow up, I would imagine this attack is both a kind of a demonstration by the Baloch fighters that, they have these kind of capabilities, that their capacities have increased, as well as you very correctly put it, perhaps it's a kind of a trap for the Pakistan Army, for the slothful bear that the Pakistan Army is, that, okay, fine, come in, extend your theater, your lines of communication get extended. There are large areas in Balochistan, even as we speak, Gaurav, where Pakistan Army is reluctant to go in.
Yes.
They're open to attacks. 90% of the stuff we don't not even hearing, because there is a clampdown on the media. There's a complete blackout of what is happening in that area. So a lot of the stuff which we don't even hear on mainstream media, but it's happening. And
Yes.
quite clearly, the situation in Balochistan is spiraling out of control at a time when you see the TTP and the others also ramping up their attacks.
In fact, that's the point I was coming to with Arzu Kazmi, but let me bring in Mehran Mari into this conversation. Sir, in your appreciation, these attacks that have taken place in the last 24 to 48 hours, were they planned? Were they timed to mark the death anniversary of Nawab Akbar Bukti, killed by Pervez Musharraf's forces in 2005-6? Is this sending out that big message, even if it's a decade and a half, close to 2 decades later, that one, we'll take revenge, and two, we'll hit Pakistan deeper?
Well, I just want to clarify one thing to Mr. Sushant, because he says Hamas. I'm not comparing the Baloch fighters to Hamas.
Absolutely. That point taken. Sub brevity. I'm very short on time because Hamas is not my story today. It's the Baloch fighters taking on the Pakistan army. Let's for a moment please focus there, please.
Yeah. Yes, the timing, I have no idea of the internal reasons why they chose the date, but yes, it was on the Barsi of Nawab Akbar Khan Bukti. When Nawab Akbar Khan Bukti was killed 17 years ago, on the same day, the whole Pakistan, the politicians, the whole civil society never protested the way they're protesting now. I mean, why is it when Punjabis are killed, it's significant, when Baloch are rapidly killed throughout and nobody raises the voice? It's just a question to be asked.
And in your appreciation, will this escalate? Will Pakistan army strike back at Balochistan, or is this a setback to the China-Pakistan economic corridor?
It's definitely a setback to the Pakistan-China corridor. But if they could, they would retaliate. But I think Pakistan is incapacitated financially and because of its internal situation. I don't think it can attack back.
Okay. Arzu Kazmi, as Pakistan army fights the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, the AFPAC border, is there a massive uprising that Pakistan has on its hands even in Balochistan? And Mehran Mari says Pakistan cannot retaliate. Pakistan army does not have the wherewithal, the money, or even the capabilities.
No, I think that Pakistan army and Pakistan government will take some people to talk to them, or even I think they are planning the operation because of China. Because China wants security for their money and for their lives. So Pakistan army and Pakistan government is planning for a full-fledged operation in Balochistan. And this is already announced by Prime Minister of Shehbaz Sharif. He said कि हम बात नहीं करेंगे, we will not go for any kind of dialogue with them, और इनके साथ सिर्फ मिलिट्री बात करेगी. So I don't think कि इसको आप mix नहीं कर सकते. You cannot mix these two together like TTP and BLA.
Okay, Sushant Sareen, war against TTP in KPK, Baloch Liberation Army in Balochistan. Does this serious trouble have the potential to escalate and even in other regions? Or can Pakistan army fight on these two fronts, plus the tension that Pakistan has started with India along the 770-kilometer long line of control?
But these are not the only fronts, Gaurav. There is a front with Imran Khan which they have opened up, which they can't seem to handle. There is a front which is opening up in POK, POJK and POGB. That front is also opening. There are problems which are now emerging in Sindh. Karachi is once again becoming quite lawless. So there are multiple fronts which have opened up. If the Pakistan army wants to carry out another operation against the Baloch, I would say be my guest, because they've been carrying out operations for the last 75 years. Fat lot of good it's done them. Every operation has only added to the anger and the alienation and the disaffection with Pakistan. Right? So if they want to carry out another operation, yeah, they should go ahead and do it. I think it will bring the demise of Pakistan much closer than what it otherwise would be. A sensible approach would be to adopt a political measure. But I don't think, high school pass generals who think they have all the wisdom of the world without having read a single book in their life can actually ever, think in a more enlightened way. So, they have a parade ground mentality. They think the whole world is a parade ground. They'll wave their stick and everything will fall in line. It doesn't work that way. There is a military law and there is a civil law. So I don't see how an operation is going to help them. And then you are talking about all of this under the backdrop of an economy which is virtually non-existent. The bottom has fallen out of the economy. The economy is already gasping for breath. Electricity tariffs have gone through the roof. Inflation is extremely high. Economic distress levels are very high. You are going to go into an IMF program, which again, there's a big question mark around. How much money are you going to spend on military operations now? Does that leave you money for any developmental activity, any growth activity? And as long as military operations are carrying on, why will the Chinese want to come and invest in CPEC? So
Okay.
CPEC is dead for the foreseeable future. And finally, to carry out attacks as the Baloch have done, and I would imagine that's a coincidence, but it adds insult to injury that the Chinese army chief is there talking to the Pakistani army chief when these attacks happen, and the
Yes.
conversations are in large part about, you know, the security of the Chinese. And on the very day you virtually lost control over a province for almost a day, what do you think the Chinese would be thinking? That they've already sunk in their money.
And as you
Now,
rightly
strategy-
pointed out, to add insult to injury, the Baloch commander, he threatened the Chinese, said, get out of Balochistan. Mehran Mari, is that the message that the Chinese need to get out of Balochistan, or they will be targeted? And we've put out the number of attacks that have taken place on Chinese interests all across Pakistan.
It's very clear. The Chinese are seen as clear accomplices of the Baloch genocide. They need to get out. They shouldn't have got in the first place. It was a dead project to start off with, but the Punjabis managed to fool the Chinese and show them some character that they're going to make a lot of money over here. It's a dead project. They should leave it. Cut their losses.
Cut their losses and leave. $60 billion or thereabouts have already been sunk in the CPEC. Arzu Kazmi, Pakistan had actually raised an entire division to protect the China-Pakistan economic corridor. That division plus seems to have failed. There are some reports that seem to indicate that China now may want to bring in its military contractors to protect its interests in Pakistan. That's a huge insult to the world's #1 army, as Pakistan Army likes to call itself. They can't protect the Chinese interests, and China will protect itself in Pakistan.
Of course, why should China just come and die here because of our CPAC? And yes, of course, this is happening here, or this is the reality of Pakistan and Pakistan military, that China wants to bring their people just to protect themselves. And I don't think that CPAC will work completely, or you can say that इसको ये complete कर पाएंगे और उसके बाद आगे ले जा पाएंगे, because Pakistan already facing tough time because of IMF refusing to give them money. Just that $7 billion is still pending. So I don't think that we are able to control anything in Balochistan or even in KPK. So China have every right to do whatever they want to, because they are our bosses.
Okay.
They are not our friends, as I always said.
You're absolutely right. Pakistan sadly has become a vassal state of China, and China-Pakistan economic corridor appears to be going down the tube. Actually, Pakistan itself appears to be in tailspin, and we'll be tracking developments here very closely. Mehran Mari, Arzu Kazmi and Sushant Sareen for joining me here on this India Today special. Many thanks. There are no celebrations here in India about what's happening in Pakistan, because as they sow, so they reap. But then we just need to keep terror at an arm's length.